Would you feel safer in a gun-free state? Why or why not? I'm from Switzerland and we have a lot of guns. They have a much different status than in the US. Most people have served in the army and know that they aren't a toy or something to show off but a deadly weapon that needs to be treated with respect. Switzerland is very safe and I feel safe there too. I moved to Austria where guns aren't as prevalent, but still exist. I don't feel a difference. In the US it's not the existence of guns that would scare me but the huge amount of maniacs who are ready to shoot anyone before asking questions. I live in Iceland. I'm more likely to win the lottery than run into someone with a gun. I feel very safe. But not because there is no guns. Mainly because I'm in Iceland. I live in Japan. Basically gun-free. Even with a gun murder yesterday I feel greatly safe from gun violence. Now the elder drivers swerving into lanes randomly not so safe. Here in Ireland, our regular police, Gardaí, don't even carry guns, there are armed units. Guns exist. Hunting is a sport and farmers might have them for rabbits etc. I feel extremely safe. I don't ever even think about gun violence here. I moved to Germany from the US. And I don't just feel safer. I am safer in literally every sense. The chances of me or my family being the victims of violent crime are much lower. I live in Taiwan. It has exceedingly strict gun laws. It's also one of the safest countries in the world in terms of risk of violent crime. I feel very safe even walking alone at night through dark alleys in the city. I'd feel safer in a culture that didn't fetishize violence. Overgeneralized. The tool makes only so much difference in the face of a sick culture. That said, if dangerous tools are readily available, they will be used, especially by a sick culture like this one. If those tools are more efficient, they will do their task more efficiently. These are all factors. I live in Australia. We are not gun-free. But we are low guns. I feel safe. If you live in a high violent crime area, you'd probably want a gun to defend yourself. If you don't, you probably don't get that. If guns magically disappeared from all of inner-city Baltimore, I still wouldn't feel safe walking around. The gangs and homeless scare me much more than the guns themselves. I am from Brazil. Technically speaking it's a gun-free country. It's very hard to get a gun here. Of course I am only considering it legally. Even with a gun or permission you really can't leave your house with it. It's completely illegal unless a judge or court allows you. Yet literally every 15-year-old thug in the street has a Magnum or something. I feel terrible, unsafe and to be honest hate the violence from here. Everyone I know was robbed at least once in their lives and I would feel a lot safer having a gun at my house. Since the state is completely unable to remove the guns from the criminals or at least arrest some of them and not release 1 month after. So, I live very close to where Canada's worst mass shooting took place in 2020. My niece's kids lost their aunt and uncle, on the father's side, to the gunman. One of the victims waitressed at a restaurant we eat at. The man drove through our town during his time evading the police. And yet, I still feel extremely safe. This type of thing is so rare here. It barely crosses my mind to need a weapon. US citizen. Retired military. Politically liberal. Gun owner. I think the biggest problem in the US is not so much guns but gun culture. It's how the gun lobby and an entire subset of the population has romanticized a tool for killing. We have a lot of problems in this country between media radicalizing the public against each other. Inadequate mental health care. Financial inequality. It is a breeding ground for violence. But then you add in a culture that makes highly efficient killing machines easily accessible to these same people and you have a recipe for disaster. I have my guns. They are locked up. I am fully trained on how to use and maintain them. I don't want my kids getting hands on them. I don't want a thief getting hands on them. They are present for their intended purpose and I hope I'm never put in a position where I have to use them. Gun philosophy in the US has merits but has one unavoidable key flaw. People, as a collective, are unreliable. I can ensure that I am trained and responsible. I can make sure my family is trained and responsible. But I have no control over anyone else. If my neighbor is an idiot or having a mental health crisis, what will they do with having access to a tool that kills easily? At range with very little effort? No, because I live in Maryland. 8 minutes away from Baltimore. which has some of the toughest gun laws in the country, yet we also have one of the highest gun crime rates in said country. Don't think it would make much difference in this state. Edit. Because everyone keeps telling me that state guns laws don't matter because I can just drive to another state and buy a gun. I'm going to add to my post. You can only do that with long guns and regulated firearms. You can't drive to another state, have a Maryland ID and buy a regulated firearm in another state that is illegal in Maryland. If a specific type of AR was illegal in Maryland and I was a Maryland resident. If I drove to PA and tried to buy said illegal in Maryland AR. As soon as the PA gun dealer saw my Maryland ID, they would turn me away and not sell me said firearm. If Maryland were to ban all guns, the same would stand. No gun dealer outside of Maryland would sell me any guns that are illegal in Maryland as long as I was a Maryland resident with a Maryland ID. Depends where. But most likely not. I live in Czechia. People can own guns. Lots of people own guns. Yet we are in top 10 safest countries in the world. It's the people who are the problem, not weapons. I live in a state with plenty of guns and I feel quite safe already. So I guess not. I don't live a lifestyle where gang violence is likely to affect me. And despite the news coverage, I understand that random mass shootings are extremely rare. I don't own a gun, so suicide isn't likely. The statistics look bad, especially when compared to other countries. But when looked at through the lens of my own situation, those statistics really don't make me feel unsafe. I live in Canada. Never seen a gun outside of military or police. I have also never really felt unsafe as a default. I've lived in a red state for 20+ years and the number of times I've seen a gun outside of a shooting range and not on a cop could be counted on one hand. I know the media paints it as the Wild West, but it's just not the case. Sorry to burst your bubble. I lived in a gun-free country in Asia. Safest I ever felt in my life. Northern Ireland here. Despite my region's reputation, I have never seen a gun here outside of a policeman's holster, a museum or a dedicated clay pigeon range. Luckily, gun safety isn't a concern for me. I live in Belgium. Very few people have guns because you need a license and a good reason. And those people know how to use them safely. The only real guns I've ever even seen are those carried by cops, and once at a friend's house whose dad goes to the range, he was cleaning his weapon. I live in the US. I feel really safe. I would probably feel safer in a gun-free state. But I've never experienced gun violence anywhere, currently living in Chicago area. I grew up hunting and around guns in general. Guns don't frighten me. People who want to hurt me frighten me. If you ask me, the US doesn't have a gun problem so much as a killing problem. It's cultural at this point. I'm not anti-gun control. But I do think it goes deeper than just access to certain classes of weapons. Guns don't scare me. It's the amount of crime, corruption and mental illness in an area that concerns me. I live in Finland, where guns aren't rare, but getting shot by one is. I don't think that the guns are a problem, but rather guns in hands of maniacs. Also, the gun culture here is very much based around tactical shooting sports for reservists as well as hunting, and not associated with street culture. Most men get to play with all kinds of guns in the military to the point of boredom. So the novelty or any kind of cool factor wears out. I live in a mostly gun-free country. And I would constantly be under quite a lot of stress if I was in a gun-ridden place like the States. No. Actually fuck no. Every day we see the craziest, most violent things imaginable taking place all over the world. It makes me thankful that I am more than equipped to protect my family and home. I live in a border state and at least once a month there's some drug runners getting caught with cartel connections having, selling, sometimes both, illegal firearms. It really won't do much except take away a form of citizens protecting themselves from thug-ass punks ruining lives. Screw the cartels and screw the people who knowingly push fentanyl. This might be the most American question ever, haha. I'm English and live in Australia. Both countries have next to no gun crime, especially Aus, and you have to have a license to legally own one in both. I felt perfectly safe in both countries, and that includes living in London. When everybody is in the same boat, you aren't naturally worrying whether somebody has a gun or not. I don't own a gun. But I don't necessarily trust police to be there when I need them. So I believe in the institution of personal defense. And guns are fun sometimes. There isn't a single thing in this world that can make me feel safe around other people. Guns don't scare me. It's what people are capable of. Even without guns. That scares me. Guns are just what gets publicized. Edit. Why the hell did this turn into a debate about gun control? I didn't even say anything about it in this comment. I'm baffled by the ignorance of some of these commenters. LMAO. Live in a pretty much gun-free country. Feel safer. Due to lack of literally anyone being armed at any time. I'm in Canada. I don't feel unsafe from guns. I feel unsafe from not having a proper system in place and allowing the mentally ill and drug addicts roam the street hours after they've been arrested and released. Violent stranger crimes are on the rise. Back to guns. I don't put myself in situations where I'll piss off a bad guy with guns. Law-abiding citizens keep their guns at home locked up. And I don't interact with gang members. I live in a gun-free country. Crime does exist. But a shovel is usually slower than a gun. Gun-free means victims don't have guns. Criminals do. Yes. Because there are fewer guns. No. Because criminals don't care. I experienced and compared this around the world. Most safe was always the environment where a person had effective option of protection of possession and/or person, and if knowledge and legality of such option was widely known. Nope. Because I would be an easier target for those with guns. I live in Canada. I'm never worried about a shooting. Doesn't cross my mind. The only reason I have guns is because other people do as well. And other people can be idiots. I can be an idiot too. But I'd rather have a gun and never use it in violence than not have one when violence is used on me. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like. If you would like to see more content like this in the future, subscribe and turn on notifications to be notified about future videos. Now check out one of these interesting videos.